Welcome to this week's episode of Coffee with the Journalist, brought to you by One Pitch. The guests on our show include some of the most notable journalists from the top US-based publications who cover topics including technology, lifestyle and culture, health, science, consumer products, and business news. We discuss their role, the types of stories they cover, what their inbox looks like, and how they connect with sources. Today we sit down with Victoria Song, a consumer tech reporter for Gizmodo. Victoria covers the news, product reviews, and in-depth features surrounding consumer tech products. Before joining Gizmodo, she was the Wearables and Smart Home editor at PC Magazine. During the episode today, Victoria talks about the madness surrounding CES, how she organizes her sources in her inbox, how she approaches reviewing consumer products, her simple rule for email follow-ups, and more. Let's hear more from Victoria now.
Hi, everyone. Welcome to Coffee with a Journalist. Today we have on the lovely, the fun, the owner of a fat cat, apparently, Victoria Song, consumer tech reporter from Gizmodo. Victoria, I cannot wait to talk about noodles and your inbox and all the things. Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me. I love doing fun stuff, so I'm excited to get started.
Yes, great. And I'm actually drinking coffee. It is early for me on this, but you are not, but it sounds like you're a coffee drinker.
I am, but I'm a very specific coffee drinker because I'm super sensitive to caffeine. So if I don't have exactly 1 cup every day, I will get a caffeine withdrawal, like migraine, and it's happened before. So it's like I have to have 1 cup before noon on Eastern Standard Time. Otherwise, it is just a bad time for me.
Oh, wow. So I assume that you've experimented with that. You skipped coffee and you're like, oh my God, a headache.
Yeah, I actually tried to quit coffee and it was like, oh, that's not happening because I was just getting migraines like every single day. And that's, if you've ever had a migraine, it's terrible. So
that is, wow. God, I drink a latte every single day and now I'm curious, except when I'm like traveling in extremely remote places, which has not happened recently, of course, but interesting. Okay. Well, keep the coffee flowing, Victoria. Keep it going. Well, let's start with your inbox. How crazy is it? How are the pitches? Tell us everything.
Oh boy. I actually have anxiety every day just looking at my inbox because I was out of work yesterday because of the dose 2 of the Pfizer completely knocked me out. So I woke up today with 130 emails in my inbox, which is not terrible. It's worst when it's something like CES, which is a big trade show for consumer tech. It's the biggest electronics show. And that is just 20,000 pitches every freaking second. And you're just like, I can't keep up. But right now, it's just a lot of pitches for stuff that's not on my beat. So it's sort of like, okay, I gotta, you can't miss anything. Just in case someone you actually work with frequently is sending you something. But at the same time, it's very, I have to take several 15-minute sections out of my day to be yes, 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 no. So I'm like a big inbox zero person.
Nice.
So yeah.
Got it. And now, do you ever file pitches that you ever come back to? I know some people use it as a filing system, or are you one of the mass deleters and it's gone?
I archive just because you never know. And I use a mail client. I use Spark, which I think is pretty great because, sometimes you're like, oh, I really need to get back to this person. I have some questions or they have questions for me, but I don't have the time right now. So I'll just snooze an email for a time where I know it'll be a lot less hectic and it'll disappear from my inbox and then come back at the right time. And it also has this really great integration with Todoist, which is my to-do app. And I can just... It's really great because I can make that a to-do from the app so I don't miss anything.
Got it. So what then, let's say you're going through the inbox, you got a gazillion pitches. Okay, what type of subject line gets you an open?
The really short ones. I actually got one from a vendor that I use. Not use, but a vendor that I work with. It's a wearable company and they're pretty well known. And it's just this person who I've corresponded with before, and it's my name and the name of the company and what they did, and I can just read it in a sentence, and I'm like, oh, okay. It's sort of you scan for keywords, where if it's just Sometimes if it's really opaque, like I got one that says tech revives retail industry. I'm like,
Yeah.
I don't know what that means. And it's probably like when I'm going through 130 emails and making split decisions about whether to archive it or not, that it's not going to get me.
Yeah. So vague things, no.
Yeah.
No. Okay. It almost sounds like kind of like a little headline, a mini headline.
Yeah. Like actually like a really interesting one that just came in, was someone I don't recognize their name, but they actually put in the subject line something that I had written about a while ago, like EMF protection hats and shungite pendants. And I was like, oh, I've written about that. So that kind of catches my eye because it means that this person has at least done some homework about what I actually cover and whether that might actually be a thing. And it's just sometimes it turns out to be something that's really useful, and then other times it's totally not. So I feel a little resentful where it's just like, oh, here's a subject line of something that I know you covered, and I'll mention that I read it in the first sentence. Here's something that is completely irrelevant to your beat and not anything you would cover. And I'm like,
yeah, I've heard of that trick before. Very annoying.
Yeah. Like, kudos to you. You're clever, but no.
But then you minus all those points when I read beyond. Oh, got it. Okay. Victoria, what is your process for coming up with stories? And maybe even the first question is, do pitches ever revert to stories?
So for me, a lot of times pitches may not. It's more not like in a direct way where someone pitches me a story and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm definitely going to write that, because it's sort of, sometimes you're just like, well, this pitch has an agenda in that sense. But sometimes a pitch will be like, do you want to talk to this expert? And I might bookmark the expert just in case, like, I'm working on a time sensitive thing and I need to reach out to someone who actually could respond in a quick manner. But like when it comes to actually pitching, like not quick hit news stories, I actually do best when I'm just talking with my teammates or just my editors, where, you know, like we'll be riffing about something in my coverage area. And then it'll be like, oh, well, that's really interesting. Like, why don't we flesh that out? So it's very haphazard. I've literally tried to have a process that was more structured and defined before, and it just never works. It's so sad. But I also do a lot of running for my beat because I review wearables and smartwatches. And so, like, you know, there's a lot of running involved to test those things. So
I love that. You're getting fit and doing your job. Love it.
It's great. But I actually come up with my best pitches while I'm running. So it's sort of like,
got it. I have to say, I mean, some of your pieces are like, you have this one on Disney about the real lifesaver inspired by a tape measure. You have this headline, which I love. This is the worst smartwatch I've ever used. You know, so they're not always flattering or necessarily a good thing. So now I'm going to just be thinking of you like running and figuring out your story angles.
Yeah, it's a little more organic when it's a product that I'm using. So like with that particular story, the worst smartwatch, oh my God, it was the OnePlus watch, and it'd been teased for a while.
Who makes that? I'm looking at it right now.
OnePlus. So they're a phone company. They're an interesting phone company. Like, mobile phones aren't my coverage area, but I've heard of them. They make Android phones. They started out with having like really interesting design, and then their main guy left, and now people are like, oh. But they mentioned that they had a smartwatch on deck, and so, you know, that's my beat. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. So you know, I've been kind of watching this launch for several months, and then, you know, I finally got a review product, and I had my reservations because companies will tell you what the specs are and what the main features are before you actually get a gadget.
Yes.
So you can kind of suss what the narrative will be from the paper, but you know, you'll never know until you actually try it. So for this particular watch, it was like, oh, well, these are the specs. They're pretty ho-hum, but it has really rapid charging and it's got really long battery life. That could be an interesting thing. That's probably the coolest thing about it. And then I got it and it was a trash fire. It was
And by the way, what an extensive review. I mean, you get into the details. This is like 1,000+ word piece. I mean, wow. So you better send Victoria good stuff.
I was actually really conflicted doing that review because, like a lot of people think reviewers or just tech journalists are so eager to tear a company apart. And that couldn't be further from the truth, actually. Like most products are pretty decent. Like you want it to be good. You're always rooting for it to be good. And you want it to be fair because you're thinking about, okay, who wants to buy this thing? Who might be interested in this? And does it work for that particular user? Does it work for like everybody else? There's so many different things that usually most of the things that you review aren't going to be categorically negative.
Yeah, until they are.
And this is just one of the rare cases where it was just a nightmare all around. And I felt bad. I felt bad. I was trying to find every single possible angle that I was like, oh, did I get a bunk unit?
Yeah, so you mentioned that. But then you conferred with other people, it says, and you didn't.
No, my DMs were really funny. It's like, so is it really bad for you too? And it's like, oh, okay. yeah, it really is. And it's a very frustrating thing because, people worked hard on a thing, but at the end of the day, you have to hold a company accountable. And this particular company, like I feel like they really rushed out a product. They could have delayed it, and then they released an over-the-air update afterwards. I was like, okay, I'm gonna test this over-the-air update because maybe there are products that launch and are kind of and then there's an update later, and you're like, oh, actually, the update changes a lot of things, and people should know about that. And I tested the update, and it fixed some things that were broken, and then broke other things that hadn't been broken previously. And I was just so gobsmacked at that.
You also read about CES coming back. Oh, Lord. You had a break, but now you're back. Let's do this part, Victoria, the kind of fill in the blank. By the way, that's your cat, right?
Yeah, he is. So my cat Pablo, he's a very fat, very opinionated cat. He's actually a published blogger on Gizmodo because
look at that.
Because for a while, he was just very upset that we weren't paying attention to him during pandemic. So he would just sit on my keyboard and just start typing and deleting graphs from my blogs. And
he's one of those sassy cats.
Yeah, no, I was just like, fine, you want to blog? You'll blog. And so I kind of wrote about the experience, and then at the end included whatever it was that he wrote. It was complete gibberish, but it was fun.
Oh my gosh. Oh, I love that. Now I got to go check out the cat blog.
Today's interview will continue after this brief message brought to you by OnePitch. Are you curious to see the unique ways OnePitch helps PR professionals and marketers pitch journalists? Head to onepitch.co to learn about our new OnePitch score and see how easy it is to find the right journalist to pitch your news to. Sign up for your free account today. Now, back to today's episode.
Okay, here's our fill in the blank section, Victoria. So I'll give you the phrase and you fill it in. Let's see what we get. My favorite sources always
provide extra context.
The most annoying sources always.
They always say, that's a good question, and then don't actually answer the question.
You'll get a response from me if
you pitch something that's really relevant to my beat.
Oh, God, it sounds so basic. You'll never get a response from me if
you use a gimmick subject line.
You can follow up with me if
never, actually. No, that's not true. Like
never.
You can follow up with me if I had previously responded to you.
There you go. That's a good rule. It would be a huge help if you
didn't write 5 paragraphs for something that only needs 1.
Yeah. The best compliment I received about my work was.
Oh, this is a funny one.
Oh, wow. What? Tell us.
I think about 2 weeks ago, a reader drunk emailed me.
No.
Yeah. And it was the funniest email I've ever gotten. And it was just like 13 points. It was like, 1, I'm drunk AF. 2, like, what's up with this and what's up with that? I think you're really chill. And this person ended it with like, keep writing, girl.
No.
Drunk as hell, but proofread, hell yeah. And I read this email and I died.
What was the subject line?
The subject line was A. And I was
Oh my God.
like, I live for reader emails. I actually get more nice emails than I do like really mean ones, though I do get really mean ones. But that one was just so funny. And like, I don't always respond to a reader email depending, but that one I responded to.
Oh my God. What did he say or she say?
They were like, oh my God, I have to go look in my closet. I'm still drunk, but I need a tuxedo because royalty is responding to me. And it was just really funny.
Oh, you being the royalty. Oh my God, that's funny.
Yeah, I actually made a t-shirt. I made a t-shirt out of the last few lines because it was just the funniest email I've ever gotten.
Wait, is that the t-shirt on your Twitter that I see?
Yes, that is the t-shirt. Because, of course I'm going to show it to my coworkers and show it to my friends. And one of my friends is a designer, and she was like, okay, I'm making this into a t-shirt. So then she actually did, and it was really funny.
Keep on writing, girl. Drunk AF, but proofread. Hell yeah.
Yep.
Oh, and then you even post it. You even post the whole thing on. Oh my God. Wow. This is the best response I've heard to that prompt ever. Ever. Oh, amazing. Okay. My favorite stories to write are
anything where I get to expound on technology in a more humanistic and personal way. So we do a lot of essays on Gizmodo, which I'm really thankful for because, a long time ago, I actually wanted to be a memoirist, but, can't really do a day job as a memoirist unless you do something else. But it is like a certain form of writing that has value. So we do this series called I Miss, and that's a Gizmodo writer basically kind of reminiscing on gadgets of days long past. So I've written things about Walkmans, my old CRT TV, and ostensibly you're talking about a piece of technology and you do get into like the history of it a little bit, but what it really is your relationship with that technology. And tech, and especially gadgets, seem like a thing that's very cold and impersonal, but it's not. It really is something that's part of your like human life. And I love to just kind of expound on that. And whenever I get the chance to, I mean, I don't think it's a coincidence that I'm a wearables writer because you are wearing it. I think it's the most personal technology you can interact with aside from your phone. Anything like that. I did a story about my dad at the end of 2019 because he was such a mysterious figure. It was called My Dad Was a Spy, maybe. And it was just all about it's about surveillance. And it's about being paranoid in this world where everyone, like, you live publicly on social media and you kind of have to think about what you say and what you do and how that's for public consumption. Like, no one is this, well, not no one, but most of us are not celebrities, but we kind of have to adopt that thinking in a while of what is public and what isn't, what is private and what isn't, and just the different ways my parents just kind of dealt with the idea of technological surveillance. And like, it was just like this long essay about that. And it was fun because I got to tell the story of my dad and my family, but also in the context of what this tech means. And I just find that so much more meaningful than like, this product launched, meh, or Apple, they have a lot of money.
Yeah. Oh, that's good. Oh, what a cool thing to then include your family in that too.
Yeah, my mom was like, do you have to? And I was like, yeah, I kind of do.
Yeah. Quarantine has taught me
about boundaries. Like, I've never been a work from home person, but until Gizmodo, the way we did it was in the mornings, we would find like something to hit quickly in the morning. And then in the afternoons, we'd kind of be able to do longer tail things. And, so for the morning, we'd wake up early, we'd find a thing to write about, do it, file it, commute into the office. So, like, that was my first experience with work from home, but it was still very, like, there was a place and time for work and there was a place and time for home. And then quarantine was just, it erased all those boundaries. And I was living in a studio apartment with my husband and my 2 pets, the beginning of quarantine. And it was 550 square feet and there was just no boundary for anything. And it was really, really hard. We've since moved, but, just kind of enforcing that, no, this is my lunch hour.
Yeah.
No, this is when I do that. And just being able to, like, I'm very much a person that says yes to every single opportunity, and just the power of saying, no, this is my boundary and this is what I need to stay sane was definitely a thing that I learned during quarantine.
Yeah. The last best thing I ate or cooked was noodles, maybe?
Ooh, kind of. Like, the last thing I cooked was a rigatoni in a
Ooh.
red sauce with bell peppers and onions and
Ooh.
yeah.
Fancy. I love it. My perfect Sunday is
Starting off with a long run, reading a book, and then chillaxing.
I like it. Okay, speaking of books, we always like to ask, what are you reading? But we'll also take listening, watching, consuming, whatever, basically, whatever in these times. You got anything? I get all my book recommendations from this show. That's basically it.
I actually just finished Viktor Frankl's Man's Search for Meaning because
What? Wait, okay.
It was a thing that, had always been on the classic list and had always been something that my friends were like, you would absolutely love this book, but it's a heavy subject matter. So I kind of put off reading it for a really long time. And, it's a really short read. So it's not necessarily like something that you're going to slog over. Like, it's not like Anna Karenina or anything like that.
Yeah.
But it was actually very hard for me to go through it in one go, just because it was talking about a lot of things that I think kind of dovetail with, like, pandemic, and just talking about, like, how do you survive and how do you find meaning in a condition where the end is uncertain and unknowable. So, like, that was just kind of, like, that was a really interesting pandemic read, but I read all sorts of stuff.
Now, wait a second. Was this his Man Searching for Meaning, or is The Will to Meaning?
A Man's Search for Meaning.
Yes, the actual classic. Okay, it has like 30,000 reviews on Audible. And guess what? It's included. Great. I love it. Okay, anything else you liked?
Yes. So my old editor recommended this lesbian necromancer space like saga.
What?
It starts with Gideon the Ninth, and I am now on the sequel, Harrow the Ninth. It is delightful. It's just very...
Wait. Gideon the Ninth? Okay, wait. What is this? What is this? Okay, Tamsin Muir? Is that who it is?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
Oh, wow. Okay, one reviewer said maybe the worst book I've ever read. Okay, that person, whatever.
I mean, she really just drops you into this sci-fi fantasy world.
I'm in it.
And you're just kind of like, what is happening for the first couple of chapters? But then it's really funny and entertaining. And in the first book, Gideon is such a funny character that you don't see that often. She's kind of like a bros gal, and she has giant biceps, and all she wants to do is read porn magazines, which is sort of kind of funny. But it's a different type of whatchamacallit. It's a very different type of sci-fi. Generally, you think sci-fi, you think Star Wars, you think Dune, you think that sort of thing. And this was, they're lesbian necromancers in space. It's very different.
Yeah. Wow. Okay, I'm totally in. One book that was recommended on here was Mexican Gothic. And someone was like, well, what is that about? I was like, well, it's not zombies, but it's a Gothic story about mushrooms that evolve, basically, and like kill people. And there's dead people walking around. It just, man, there's something for everybody. There is something for everybody. I like this. This is different, it seems like. It's on my list, Victoria. Thank you for that. Victoria, what do you think the future of journalism looks like?
So I actually think the future of journalism is going to be sort of not the way that we're going right now, where, you have a lot of local journalism being bought out by private equity firms, and you have just a lot of, young journalists who are at a loss of how to get a staff job because, like
Yeah.
all of us in this biz know that the difference between a freelancer and a staffer is luck.
Yeah.
There's so many really talented freelancers out there.
There are.
But I feel like some media companies view us as like just kind of cogs in a machine, very replaceable, even though we're not. We have all of our own different like perspectives and all of that sort of thing. And I just think, in the past year, there's been a bit of a reckoning with how white media can be. And like, obviously, I'm a woman of color. I'm a queer woman of color. So, one of the things that I love about my team is that you have a group of female consumer tech journalists, which is, this is an extremely male dominated space. And just like, shout out to my editor, Caitlin McGarry. She did the review of the AirTags, and her and then like another friend of mine, Brenda Stoliar from Mashable, they actually brought this perspective about these AirTags where, they just didn't do enough in terms of security and privacy. Yeah. And, all the other coverage that I had seen at that point was like, oh, they scratch easily. You can't detach them easily.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was sort of just like, oh, well, I can't really blame them because, not everyone has the experience of fearing for their safety and thinking about how these things could be abused. And, you need that perspective. So I think if journalism is to evolve, it's going to be more about bringing in those perspectives. And, I would love to see more things like, especially in my own industry or like my own kind of like the tech journalist industry is just more BIPOC writers talking about surveillance and just how they're underserved by that. And, like these are really interesting stories that aren't being covered because, not necessarily the quote unquote white male tech journalists that you typically think of. That's not their experience. They're not going to think about it in that way. But then also, it's very hard for anyone who doesn't come from a wealthy background to break into this because, pay is low. Job security is not high. So
no. Mm-hmm.
So I really think that like people are going to form more local things that are reader funded. Like you're seeing it with Substack, but Substack is like really about individual personalities. And I think we're going to start moving towards like kind of what Defector did, kind of what Splinter did, where you just have people going, okay, well, what if we did our own thing? And I don't think like Substack is very personality based, but I think there's a space out there for non-personality based local or like niche publications out there. Yeah, like the era of the blog again, I think will come. It's just sorting out how it's going to shake out is kind of the interesting part.
We will see. Would you go into the industry again if you had to rewind back to the college days?
So like I thought it was going to be a lot of different things, but I thought I was going to be a lawyer. So I was taking those classes and then I had
international affairs, Asian studies.
Yeah. I was going to do the whole diplomatic route. And then my international law teacher sat me down and he was like, you are incredibly gifted at this. You would undoubtedly be great. I really want you to think about literally anything else because it's a miserable life.
Wow.
That's actually how I ended up. I like cried over a paella because I was like, I've just done 4 years of college for something and I think I'm going to be a journalist. What?
Oh.
So like if I were to go back, I really don't think there is any other way. Like writing is all I've ever really done or just naturally or just had any passion for. So I think I was screwed from a young age. So I would, but I think I would just tell myself how to pitch better, how to network.
Yeah.
That sort of stuff.
Oh, fascinating. It's very rare I have anyone on here. I'd say it's definitely, less than 20% that are like, oh yeah, I went to school for journalism and now I'm a journalist. It's quite rare.
Yeah.
It really is. It's like, no, I did Pan-Asian American studies and now I'm doing coverage of Amazon. It's all circuitous and just all over the place, and it's all over the place.
Yeah, I actually think it's better to do that.
I think it is too.
Like you can do a double major or a minor, but like I think it's better to like really gain an expertise in something that you're very interested in because my first job, I kind of viewed that as my my journalism degree because it was so valuable. I had a really great boss who just destroyed my work in a loving way, in a very loving way. And I learned so much from that experience on how to report, what you were supposed to do. And it was a little bit trial by fire, but because of that, like, I think I have a really strong grasp on what is and isn't ethical. And that kind of, I don't think necessarily they, like, I can't say because I didn't study journalism in college, but I don't think necessarily the practicalities of what it means to be a journalist or a writer is taught in school. So like, I don't think schools are very practical, like how you actually take the things you learn in class, which are theories and principles, and actually turn them into a thing that will help you get paid. So, yeah.
Well, Miss Victoria, we've come to the part of the Mad Libs, which is one of the favorite parts, and sometimes shockingly accurate, sometimes not. But let's see what we get. So let me give you the word, and you give me your word back, and I will fill it in, and then we will read and see what we come up with. So first thing is an emotion.
Anxiety.
Anxiety. That's a good one. How about an adjective?
Stupendous.
Stupendous. Yes. Another adjective.
Let's just go with contentedly.
Contentedly. I like it. Contentedly. Okay. A greeting. Any greeting.
Salutations.
Salutations. And then a verb.
Running.
Running, yes. A noun.
Cat.
Cat?
Yeah.
Yeah. Love it. What's your cat's name, by the way?
Pablo. After Life of Pablo. From my husband is a big Kanye fan, so that's what it was.
Hey, there you go. Okay. A adjective. An adjective.
Sophisticated.
Sophisticated. Okay. A cringeworthy PR term. Or
God.
phrase.
There's so many. There's so many, but when you need to pull one out, just
I know. This always puts people on the spot. Yes.
A cringeworthy PR term.
Or phrase. Whatever you think of.
Wanted to quickly follow up.
Oh, yes. Wanted to quickly follow up. Okay. A part of a pitch.
Just like, what someone would pitch to me, or just like
attachments, media kit, the opening,
Oh my God, TIFF files.
TIFF files.
This is my pet peeve. Send everything in a JPEG or a PNG, because if I have to open up Photoshop to turn a TIFF file into a JPEG or like...
Who sends that? Okay, length of time.
2 hours.
2 hours. Okay, a name of a real person, preferably alive.
Ooh, Sundar Pichai.
What?
Just the CEO of Google. I don't know why I was thinking of Google.
Hey, that's all right. All right, okay. And then an emotion.
Relief.
Okay, here we go, Victoria. Here it is. When I think of the future of journalism, I feel anxiety. The pitches I receive have gone from stupendous to contently. If I receive a pitch that starts with salutations, Victoria, I start running. When I write stories on cats, particularly Pablo, I get very sophisticated. My favorite pitches include wanted to quickly follow up and very specific TIFF files. I normally take around 2 hours to respond to my emails, but if it's the CEO of Google, I will respond immediately. If you do get a response from me, you should know that I am relieved for you. There you go, Victoria. I kind of like it.
It's scarily accurate for certain things.
Yes, I love it. Victoria, this has been such a joy. Thank you for sharing the cat, the shirt, everything. This is great. And I'm going to be reading that 9th Gideon thing. Seems fascinating.
It's fun. It's a wild ride.
You know what? We need fun right now. So I'm on it. Thank you again, Victoria.
Thanks for listening to this week's episode of Coffee with a Journalist featuring Victoria Song from Gizmodo. If you enjoy listening to our show, make sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Podcasts, and anywhere else you listen to podcasts. And if you have a moment, please leave us a review to share your thoughts about the show and today's guest. To learn more about the latest tools on OnePitch and subscribe to our weekly podcast newsletter, head to our website at onepitch.co. We'll see you all next week with a brand new guest and even more insights about the journalists you want to learn more about. Until then, start great stories.